We have an update in the head coaching search, and also Ryan Poles getting a little bit more love. Talk about that next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube, and also download the podcast everywhere that you get your podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is. Just search for Unbearable Sports. So what's going on? We haven't done a show in a couple days, so we have a lot to go through. Interviews, Ryan Poles updates, Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Pete Carroll, lots and lots of stuff going on. So let's just get right into it, shall we? So let's start out with the interviews. So Bears have interviewed a whole bunch of different coaches remotely. And I know that this is kind of irking to some people because a lot of these are remote. And the big thing with at least Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, they have to be remote. But I definitely do think that it causes some Bears fans to kind of pause a little bit and say, why didn't we do that with Mike Vrabel? Why didn't we do it with like a Pete Carroll? Because we want to bring them in. We want to show them Hallis Hall. Like, we have overhauled this entire building. So let's show them the stuff that we take pride in and get talking that way. So right now, everybody is remote. Everything is going remote. We'll see more on who's actually going to be in person later on. If the Lions get exited early, then we'll see Ben Johnson come a little bit earlier on in. Also, now in that same exact vein, one thing that we've heard about and we've kind of discovered is that there was a report out there that the Bears always used to fly their head coaches or their candidates in coach. And now Kevin Warren is saying, I'm putting a stop to that, and this is going to be treated as a first-class organization. So that means that, hey, we're probably not going to be having them all fly coach. Maybe this is first class. Maybe this is private jets, because some organizations actually do that. We should. We're a charter franchise. We're worth billions and billions of dollars. We should treat it that way and really kind of impress some of these players or some of these coaches, because that's what we should be doing. That's how we should be running this organization. Seems like Kevin Warren's all on board. So some great stuff right there. Also, one other addition to the interviews, Bears are adding in Ron Rivera into the head coaching mix, which personally for me, I don't know about you guys. If anyone's out there listening out there on YouTube, let me know what you think about Ron Rivera. I'm not a big fan. I know that he's a former Bear, everything like that. But when you look at his coaching record, very not impressive. You're talking about, this kind of reminds me of like a John Fox hire if we were to add him as a head coach, where kind of veteran coach, he's been around, but never really true success. Like, had like one good year, but that's about it. But Ron Rivera, look at the record. It's not that great. As a DC, I really like that idea. As a head coach, not so much. So now, let's talk, rather than the head coaching search, let's talk about Ryan Poles. Because I know with us Bears fans, Ryan Poles has been someone that I've seen the comments. Fire him. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. And the thing that I'm surprised at is the amount of kind of like just love, not like absolutely like he's the greatest thing of all time, but there's just more and more stories going out there that it's not really, a lot of us were thinking that Ryan Poles was going to be a big issue. And unfortunately, that seems to be focusing more on Kevin Warren. And some little pieces out there from Adam Hogue from CHGO said, despite, this is all about like just the overall interviews and just kind of how they're going. And he said, despite Chairman George McCaskey claiming it has never come up, the contract of Ryan Poles, in an interview he's been a part of, I'm told Poles' contract status absolutely is a major talking point among head coaching candidates. Duh, right? But perhaps an even bigger concern, the role of team president Kevin Warren. Warren's relationship with Big Ten coaches was a big enough issue that questions about working for him have seeped well into the NFL coaching community. It was reiterated to me this week that a Jim Harbaugh-Kevin Warren pairing was an absolute non-starter, which is why the Bears didn't even attempt to go down that road last year. That's not to suggest Warren's presence is a poison pill in attracting a desirable head coach, but candidates are at least wary of his presence and have questions about the somewhat odd power dynamics currently existing at Hallis Hall. And the other piece too, this is kind of on the Vrabel front, yet again from Adam Hogue of CHGO saying, some in league circles believe Vrabel and GM Ryan Poles would be a great match. Given their Kansas City Chiefs connection, the bigger question seems to be about compatibility with ownership. Will Vrabel have enough faith in the McCaskies? And will George McCaskey sign off on a true alpha leader who won't be afraid to ruffle feathers inside the building? Whether Vrabel takes the job or not, how serious things get between the two sides could tell us a lot about how the job is viewed around the league. So like I said, this isn't like a declaration of, oh my God, Poles is amazing or anything like that. But I know a lot of us had concerns about going in with Poles. Now, the unfortunate part is that it's really the ownership that there's more questions about. And there's all over the internet, there's more and more posts about this seems like a good fit with Poles. This seems like a good fit with Poles. And we'll go through a couple more that talks about just the fit with Poles, where it used to be kind of a big issue. I think a lot of people were thinking that it was going to be an issue, but yeah, it seems like it's more so Kevin Warren, unfortunately, and the McCaskies that are the bigger question. Also, too, let's go over to Ben Johnson, because even more, another reason to like Ryan Poles, there's a lot of reports out there that Ryan Poles is the person that really likes Ben Johnson. And I know that there was some like speculation that Ryan Poles is afraid of Ben Johnson, but it never really was truly reported. Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog said, one source told me that Ryan Poles covets Johnson, while others in the building, Warren especially, are looking for established program builders. And then also too, the Bears blog is saying, also, I know there's been trepidations on Ben Johnson and Bears structure, but I'm told solidly that he's not only interested in the Bears, he loves the idea of working with Caleb. Also told Poles is enamored with him. We wait and see. So yet again, same source, but kind of just talking more and more about Ben Johnson being someone that Poles really does like. And then, like I said, Warren, maybe he wants more of that program builder, which we'll talk a little bit later on. Also, how did the interview go? We haven't heard much, but Sears Tower, Twitter's faithful reporter, yet again, take it with a grain of salt, saying the Bears were thoroughly impressed. They had high expectations, and it's safe to say he met them, maybe even surpassed. From the Bears' perspective, they think they were able to alleviate some of his concerns about the Bears' leadership and organization. So if that's true, absolutely love that stuff. But one other piece that I want to bring up about Ben Johnson. We talked about this a little bit before the past couple days, where the Raiders entered the picture. They were just kind of off on the side, and they just fired their head coach, fired their GM. But now I'm getting a little bit more nervous about the Raiders potentially coming in and coaching a Ben Johnson. Peter Schrager reported from the NFL Network, Ben Johnson / the Raiders actually picking up way more steam in league circles over the last 48 hours. And Ian Rappaport saying too, as the Raiders head coach kicks into gear, one name to watch, Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, which they have actually requested to interview. The organization is said to be enamored with him, and Tom Brady's personal touch has helped. So we said this. We said, hey, everything was pointing to Ben Johnson going to the Bears, and we were kind of joking about this. Something about the Bears makes it feel like things just, we're not going to get the best coaching candidate, even though that everything on paper seems to make sense. The Raiders, to me, are going to be the ones to watch out for now, because like we were saying before, the reason why it felt like Ben Johnson, and yet again, he was the betting favorite. I didn't check if he still is. He might be. But the Raiders are a very interesting place because, like we said, the Jaguars, the way that their ownership and GM is, it's not good. Patriots most likely going to get Vrabel. And then the only other people that are bringing him in are the Raiders. And the Raiders do have Tom Brady. And I think that Tom Brady being there, that's cool. That's cool to have the GOAT right there as an owner. Yet again, just a partial owner, new franchise, new city. That could be a cool thing for Ben Johnson. So that is the big name to watch out for, is the Raiders in the Ben Johnson sweepstakes. So Bears, do something. Hopefully the interviews went flawlessly and exactly what Sears Tower was reporting. Hopefully that's exactly what was going on. Because let's flip over to Mike Vrabel. Where in many, many coaching situations, everyone's just kind of saying, hey, Vrabel's going to be a Patriot. Ultimately, that's what's going to be happening. He's been the favorite for so long, and they're only going to be interviewing 4 coaches. So they interviewed 2 that just were that Rooney Rule to just kind of check the box. They did that, and then they brought in Mike Vrabel, and then they remotely discussed things with Ben Johnson. So that's it. They're only going to interview 2 people. So they're probably pretty certain that they're going to be getting Mike Vrabel. Now, there were some rumors out there that Mike Vrabel and the Bears had a really good connection, but it seems like he's destined to go to New England. And if not, the only other person that they've talked to is Ben Johnson. So if Ben Johnson goes there, I'm really curious if Vrabel would be interested in the Bears job, because he is more of that program. He wants to more so build a program and have a better understanding with ownership, especially because the Titans, when they got new ownership, they traded away A.J. Brown, and he historically did not know what happened. So that was something that, for those that don't remember that, you just saw the surprise in his eyes when he found out, like, wait, we're trading A.J. Brown? I can't believe that that's actually happening. So let's continue this and just kind of put a bow on it. We have Pete Carroll and Ian Cunningham coming up next. So Pete Carroll is someone who reportedly, from Charlie Campbell, saying that Pete Carroll wants the Bears job badly and already is lining up top assistants if Chicago hires him. Now, we've heard this all over the place. We heard this in our final game versus the Packers, that Pete Carroll is all in for the Bears. He seems really like he wants to be here. And when we talk about Kevin Warren, reportedly, Kevin Warren and ownership wanting a program builder, Pete Carroll was the head of player personnel and the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks when he was over there. So that is someone that is a program builder that checks the box of that. And I kind of dismiss some of the Pete Carroll pieces just because he's 73 and a half. I could see him potentially being someone that checks the boxes for all the like exactly what people want. He's someone that leads the room. He's someone that if Ben Johnson goes over to the Raiders and Vrabel gets taken up, he could be that third option because he checks what everybody essentially wants out of a head coach. Now, the only thing that I want to just kind of call out is Seattle was known for having some of the worst drafts later on in his career, where he was just taking people just for the sake of taking people, and everyone was always kind of confused with what he was going through. So similar to like a Bill Belichick, if they were to go the Pete Carroll route, I would want Pete Carroll to be the head coach, but not the person making the drafts. Because yes, showing Ryan Poles a little bit more love, Ryan Poles is a better drafter, maybe not in the third round, than Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, second half of his career at Seattle, terrible track record that he had going out there. I mean, I think his final one was good, but besides that, never really great drafts for Pete Carroll. But I like the idea of Pete Carroll from a head coaching perspective if you're not able to get some of the top candidates, because also when they talk about the top assistants that they could get, I know a lot of people automatically assume Gus Bradley because he was with him with the Legion of Boom. That doesn't really excite me. Gus Bradley has been just kind of a middle of the road defensive coordinator that you just kind of fill in. The person that I'm looking at is someone who was a defensive quality control coach with him back in Seattle for 3 years. And that is Robert Saleh. So look for that. If they end up going with Pete Carroll, look for Robert Saleh to potentially come in, because I said this with Pete Carroll. If Pete Carroll comes in, I also want him to have a structure of, hey, I understand I'm 73 and a half years old, that I'm probably going to retire in the next, 6 years? He's probably not going to be coaching till he's 80, but he's going to probably have a plan. He needs a plan of, hey, if I'm here for 5 years, this is what's going to happen. Here's my replacement. And Robert Saleh could be a great replacement for him. And then from the offensive side, Darrell Bevell is someone that was an OC with him, could be that guy that comes in as the offensive coordinator. Definitely not Shane Waldron. So that's my kind of 2 cents with Pete Carroll. Seems like there's just so much interest that he has. And also, correction, he was the VP of football ops, not the head of player personnel. So still in charge of football operations. So now let's go over to Ian Cunningham, where we talked about this before. and kind of said, hey, he's probably going to get an interview with the Titans job. I still think he's going to be the Titans GM. And just so you know, he has an interview with the Titans on the GM opening. He was also a finalist for that Tennessee job 2 years ago. It just makes sense. He's had the number 1 pick 2 straight years. He has it's not a daunting task for him. I think that he's a perfect fit for it. And also then we get some 3rd round picks. So good luck, Ian. I really think that would be awesome. And then we would know more about Ryan Poles. That's what I'm excited to know about too. So it's, hey, is Ian the one that's calling the shots? What does Poles do flying solo? So that's why too. And the 3rd round picks. Just don't have Ryan Poles make those 3rd round picks. Have him trade it. Have him trade it for something. Or trade it for like a 2nd round pick the next year. Because then he'll probably hit on it. So yeah, but if you're still watching out there, make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. And also download the podcast. Down in the description, you can click on the link or go to your phone, search for it. Just search for Unbearable Sports on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and